Yes, as Mike said, I recall earlier inquiries being held on Stolid Military, which is easy to get to for me in particular, but for many other people.
No, it's ridiculous that it's changed.
And that was pretty full, those hearings, weren't they?
You know, the public meeting we had 230 people there.
Yeah.
How many people are here?
None at the moment. I'm supposed to be having someone offering me support, but no doubt she's got lost.
Who's coming?
A lady called Alice Rogers.
Yeah.
So good morning, it's now 9:30 and this inquiry is resumed. For the formalities, let's just check that everyone can hear me and that the live stream has commenced. Thank you. So for people new to the proceedings, my name is Kevin Gleeson. I'm a planning inspector appointed by the Secretary of State for Transport to hold this inquiry and make a recommendation to them. Programme Officer is Helen Wilson, seated at the back of the room. If you have any queries about the inquiry process, organisation or documentation, please speak to her in the first instance. So this is the fourth day of the inquiry. Usual reminders: can you ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are switched to silent, please? There are no fire alarm tests or drills today. So in the event of a fire alarm, please exit by the fire exits, one to my right, one further down on that side of the room, and further on where you came into the building. Fire evacuation assembly point is located in the car park. Toilets are available in the main reception area you came through. So today we will adjourn at 2 o'clock at the latest. Depending on progress, we may have a mid-morning break. And as yesterday and previous days, the inquiry is being live streamed and recorded. So today we're going to hear from Councillor Nick Bolter and Councillor Mike Bonfield, both on behalf of the consortium, and then from Chris Brady. So I have a few procedural issues to raise before we begin. Firstly, to note that the applicant has provided a note of operating hours, as I had requested yesterday, and I've also received a revised version of the statutory instrument. On that point, Mr. Reynolds, could you briefly outline the changes between the SI as originally submitted and the revised version, please?
Yes, sir, certainly. So the original version is to be found, as you'll be aware, in Volume 1, pages 2 to 7. That has formed the template, if you like, for the new draft SI, and there have just been some amendments to it, as you have indicated. What has happened is there is now a table 1 setting out the proposed tolls for use of the ferry. So, forgive me, the table 1A setting out the proposed tolls for use of the ferry. And the source of that table is to be found within, sorry, I have a bad reference, I think, within Mr. Keane's witness statement, proof of evidence, sorry, just 1 second. Sorry. The tools are obviously, as have been the subject of this, so they haven't changed yet. What has changed, I'm told, is that the discounts are now inserted into a table 1B, and they are the discounts within the application, within the proof of evidence, but the dates have been brought forward by 1 year, so they apply not from 1st of April 2024, not 1st of April 2025, and there was a duplicated column at the end to show the declining discounts to the 24 and 28%. That was shown twice, just to demonstrate to you, sir, that it was a constant thereafter, and that the final call was deleted as unnecessary legislatively. And as I've said, this cable has been given its own heading, and some text has been inserted to make crystal clear to anyone reading the legislation how the discount in Table 1B is to be applied to the single fare in Table 1A, so there can be no confusion as to how the discounts operate. So those are the only changes, nothing else has changed.
Okay, so that would be on the website and people can comment. Certainly, Dr. Langley wanted to
And
comment.
it's been sent to Dr. Langley
Okay,
personally.
understood. Thank you. Okay. I'd also requested a plan showing the postcode areas. Is that being progressed?
I believe so.
Don't necessarily need that as long as
The
it's-
problem may be cut through through something I want to tell you, if I
Okay,
may, in
yes.
relation to that. So the ferry company has obviously listened to the evidence and has taken it on board and is alive to the issue of BH, certain properties in BH20. So it is proposed that the concession that had been extended to BH19 be extended somewhat. So I'll just read out what the new proposal will say, and I will of course send this text. So the ferry company will not take a road toll for the use of the motor road in respect of any vehicle that is registered by its original VHC vehicle logbook to a property with a BH19 postcode, or to a property with a BH20 postcode within 5 miles of the ferry office, Shell Bay, Scotland. The postcode of that office is providing that in the preceding 12 months, the registered keeper or other person so authorised has completed a valid application to the company for an exemption in respect of the vehicle and paid an administration fee. So it's to address that problem. Actually, there's some properties that creep into it with the BH20 postcode, so 5 mile radius not applies.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And just to clarify then, how would the postcode concession operate? How is that controlled? Not in the SI itself.
Yes, it's going to be in a side letter undertaking to the Secretary of State. The reason for that, sir, is on review of the statutes, there was some concern as to whether or not the Secretary of State has the power to impose those sorts of conditions or to require that the ferry company give those sorts of concessions, as it were, because there's the power to set a maximum toll, but nothing else said, and so simply for that reason, but it's an undertaking to the Secretary of State which will be published, and therefore, and is obviously has been made publicly in this inquiry.
Okay, that's understood. Thank you. And then the other matter I just wanted to raise before we move on is in relation to communication from Mr. Slow
Yes.
further to his submission on Wednesday evening
Yes.
and my comments yesterday.
Yes.
Will the ferry company be able to provide its case on Human Rights Act issues by the end of today to enable Mr. Slow to respond in writing by close of business on Monday next week?
Yeah, so how Mr. Slow puts his argument is bundle 4, pages 94 and 95. So he links the issue to the World Heritage Site accreditation. So that's 14.1. He sets out the public right to access and enjoy cultural heritage, namely UNESCO World Heritage Site, which he says starts at the South Ferry Terminal, and then he goes on to say, and this is recognised as a Human Rights Act under the 1998 Act, is being interfered with, etc., etc. And then 14.2 similarly links it to being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Article 14 of the European Convention of Human Rights. Insofar as that's a legal point, I would say it's legally incoherent because the suggestion that an international treaty is somehow directly enforceable by a UK planning inquiry doesn't go anywhere. But there's a more basic factual point that cuts across it. It was dealt with in Mr. Keane's witness statement I've got paragraph 60 of his rebuttal statement, which is bundle 3, page 288. Whereby Mr. Keane said in paragraph 60, contrary to the assertion of various objectors, the ferry company's property, terminals and ferry route do not form part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so there is definitively on the World Heritage Site a series of maps showing where the World Heritage Site is, and it can be seen at some distance from the ferry road. The maps were not appended to the witness statement simply because there were so many objections, there were so many miscellaneous points that it would not have been possible to to deal with each one as if it was the sole objection. And so the paragraph was inserted to deal with the points that the inspector had the evidence. If you would like to defend the evidence, I've got it in front of me. I appreciate Mr. Sloan may have something to say about the WHO's map, and he should certainly be given the opportunity to do so. I've handed it to Mr. Dubin. I'll pass it to yourself and it'll be uploaded onto the website. If there's any objection taken to our reliance on it now, I will obviously respond to any objection. If you like, I can make an application. So it's something which is a publicly available document, and will assist the inspector that wants to do so in not going wrong in your report, so that you know where it is and where it's not.
That would be helpful to have that. And if it's available, then Mr. Slow can respond.
Yes.
And if it's available today, given the timetable he set out,
yes.
Then it should be completed by the end of the examination. So
yes.
I don't see an issue with that.
Yes, I'm grateful. So would you like to hand that up now?
Yes, please.
So what this document shows, it will be uploaded exactly as it appears, including with the highlighted section onto the website. This has been sourced from the WHO's website. You see it's the copyright of Dorset County Council because they have nominated it to the WHO, so it's their copyright, but it's from the WHO's website. It shows in red the WHO World Heritage Site, UNESCO I should say, not WHO, UNESCO World Heritage Sites come from the UNESCO website, forgive me, that's what I'm now saying, WHO. And in yellow is Ferry Road, and you can see it's some distance, even from the northernmost part of the Jurassic coast. So there's several different sections of the protected coastline, and even the northernmost coast is some distance from the Ferry Road, such that it's not an access point to the protected sites.
Okay, thank you. Good, I think that deals with that matter. So can I just check, before we move on to today's witnesses, does anyone else wish to speak today who has not already indicated they wish to do so? No? Oh, yes.
I just want to make a comment immediately. This was very difficult to find. I live in Swanage. I've never been here before. It was very hard to find. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I just
noted.
needed to say that.
Thank you. Are there any other procedural or housekeeping matters? Mr. Reynolds?
None from me, sir, thank you.
Mr. Tubin?
None from us, thank you.
Thank you. So on that basis, let's continue with the programme. And Mr. Dubin, if you want to call your next witness.
Thank you, sir. The consortium calls Councillor Nick Bolter to give his evidence on behalf of the consortium. Could you please give your full name to the inspector?
Yes, it's Nick Bolter, and I'm chairman of Studland Parish Council.
And what does that role involve?
Its main role here is actually just representing the views of our residents, both the residents and the employing organisations within Studland, helping inform them, and also helping bring their opinions. We have no legal powers, as you know. Powers of the parish council are extremely limited, so it's primarily representational.
And what is the geographical extent of Studland Parish Council?
Studland Parish Council extends from Brandsea Island, which you'll see out in the harbour here. Basically, from Shell Bay right up to Ballards down across the north of there, and then back down to Poole Harbour. So it includes this side of the ferry. We're a fairly small village of about 400 or so people, but I guess we punch above our weight in terms of visitors. We have about 1.5 million visitors a year coming to Studland. It's probably internationally famous. It's the start of the Jurassic coast.
Thank you. Could I ask you to look in bundle 4? So in front of you, you've got some large bundles.
Yep.
The largest of them, I think, is bundle 4.
Yep.
And if you could turn to page 19, please.
Okay.
Do you see there the proof of evidence of the consortium?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you turn to page 21, please?
Right.
You'll see there section 2 of the proof of evidence that you're speaking to. It extends from paragraphs 2.1 to 2.5. But you've also put in a personal objection. Can you tell the inspector from memory the number given to that objection on the inquiry's website?
275.
Thank you.
I also submitted on behalf of our residents about 70 other objections which are part of the petition, which I think is it's the last set. I think it's 365 to 635, 74 signatures there.
And were you personally involved in collecting those signatures?
I drew up the petition. We used this at a public meeting. We organised, as part of our representational role, we organised a public meeting, which is something we do quite often. I have to say it was the biggest public meeting we've ever organised. We had 235 people in Studland Village Hall. I thought probably 80 would be a good turnout. 235 was phenomenal. The only point about mentioning the numbers is it shows the feeling, the depth of feeling in the Purbeck. And I can explain that for you if you like, but the extent of feeling and why people are feeling very upset and let down by this application.
And as chairman of Studland Parish Council, what access do you have to information about local infrastructure, services and the demographics of your area that might not be available to the ordinary citizen?
Probably none, in fact. I mean, I think whilst we may get advanced sight of information, I think most information from Dorset Council is now online and generally available. So I wouldn't like to say that as a parish council we have any particular privileged information.
So you told us that you've been involved with a public meeting. What other engagement have you had with the people of Studland in respect of the company's proposals?
I've had some discussions with some of our local residents. You heard from Malcolm Tice, or rather Eric Stobart on behalf of Malcolm Tice earlier on this week, I think on Tuesday. And Malcolm was very much focusing on more the accounting issues, which is in his background. Malcolm is a qualified accountant. He's also a business guy. Eric is a banker, lifelong banker, but also involved in regulation. So I have those plus Andrew Langley, who's I think speaking on Tuesday. We've had discussions. They put in their own submissions. My main role is with the parish council. Our parish council is supporting the consortium submission. Beyond that, my main role has been just to pull together any sort of like the petitions. And also to make my own objection. I have obviously spoken to employers in the area, the Pig Hotel, Isle of Purbeck, Knowle House Hotel.
So forgive me, I'm just looking through both the objection, one eye on the objection, one eye on the proof of evidence. I can't see any of this in that. I also know that several of the people mentioned have already put in their own objections and don't need to be repeated.
Yeah, I can refer to the objections of some of these because they are extremely relevant to comments about Studland. So the Pig on Beach, nationally renowned hotel, Sunday Times Hotel of the Year in 2014. Their submission is number 358. And I think it's extremely relevant actually for this inquiry because it's all about what do the ferry company, so far as we're concerned, is an extremely important organisation. It's one of the two gateways into the Isle of Purbeck. Over 500 people an hour during the summer coming into the Isle of Purbeck. They're not just coming to walk, go on the beach, they're also coming to spend money. They go to our hotels, they go to our restaurants, and so on. The Pig on the hotel, whilst they have they're highly booked up months in advance, it's a frustration for me. I can't even book at lunch there sometimes, they're so popular. But when they are highly dependent on the ferry, and on their submission, 358, they make it very clear that they're affected in a series of ways. Firstly, a number of their employees, quite a few of their employees come from BCP. They share the cost of the travel with those employees. And so it's detailed, the evidence is detailed in here on the cost. But when the cost of the tolls goes up, this is an extra cost to the Pig. They're also concerned about regularity, so that if the ferry is down for a day or two, that means they get a lot of lunch cancellations. That's a lot of lost business. I would also I've also referred you here to other organisations. I've chosen at random, but they're all here because I've taken a private sector organisation, the hotel. I've also taken a charitable organisation, which is the Swanage Railway Company. It's a heritage railway company, so it's a charity. Their submission is 492, and they're making a point about how important it is for them to attract visitors from the BCP area and further afield. And when fares, tolls go up on the ferry, it makes it more difficult for them to attract people to use the ferry. So they see their business put at threat. You might say the Church of England is not a body which should be affected by the tolls. But if you look at 484, there's a submission by the Reverend Dr. Ian Bell, who's the rector of the Swanage ministry, which includes Studland, and he makes comments about recruitment, about problems for employers. But he also makes comments about worshippers coming across to use St Nicholas Church. St Nicholas Church is 11th, 12th century church, very historic. And people from BCP like to come across to St Nicholas Church. But they're also worried by the toll increases. A lot of our residents from both Sutherland and also Swanage work in BCP, in the BCP area. And I'll refer you to objection number 410, which is from the University Hospitals Dorset NHS Foundation Trust, where they say that 44 of their colleagues, who are nurses, doctors, auxiliary staff, come from the Isle of Purbeck, and that they're seriously worried that the cost of the tolls is going to stop them being able to work at the hospital. It's putting up the tolls just means that, given the sort of fairly low wages which are paid in the NHS, just like in the service sector, an significant increase, as is proposed by the ferry company, makes the wages unsustainable. It just makes it not worthwhile. So there's 4 organisations: a religious one, a charitable one, a private sector, and a public sector. I could have found many other quotes for you from the golf course, from hotels in Swanage. No one has come to me and said, we welcome these increases. Many people, many of these businesses have come, and they're equating their position. They're trying to stimulate demand, get people, recruit people, but they're seeing their position a bit like Scipius, if I get my pronouncing right, the mythical character trying to push a rock up the hill, condemned for life for doing that. And they see themselves doing that. They would actually like a partnership with the ferry company, but they've had no discussions with the ferry company over the last 4 years. In fact, at the 2021 inquiry, it was promised by the ferry company that there would be a community liaison group set up. That never materialised. And I think the whole view of both residents and employer organisations in the Isle of Purbeck area is that the ferry goes and does its own thing. They're looking after themselves, but they have absolutely no concern for the employers or for the residents of the Isle of Purbeck. And the biggest feeling, sir, was at this public meeting was people on the one hand love the ferry company because it's our gateway out. On the other hand, they hate the ferry company because of what it's doing with the tolls and making it totally unaffordable for them to be able to use it. And they're in despair because they feel that the way the ferry company is going and its constant increase in tolls is only going to stop people from using the ferry company. And they view, the words which you use, is they view the ferry company as in a bit of a doom loop. That by pushing up the tolls, they're stopping not only residents from coming, not only stopping employees from travelling on the ferry, but also putting up visitors. And maybe that's why their forecasts they put in for a 7% decline in car users is there at a time when road usage is increasing. So there's there's a despair, they see the ferry and a doom loop, and they see if the ferry continues this way, rather than exercising a partnership with people, then they fear for its future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Mr. Reynolds.
Fine.
Thank you, sir. No questions.
That's it.
You have any questions?
Can I just ask, the parish council, you're obviously speaking on behalf of the parish council.
Yes.
Is this something that has been formally debated and agreed, minuted? Has there been any formal
The
discussion?
parish council support the consortium.
Yes.
Yes, and it will be limited with the support of this. Yeah. I can't remember which meeting it was at. I can find out.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful if you could.
Okay.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, pleasure.
The consortium calls Councillor Mark Bonfield to give evidence.
Good morning.
Good morning. Could you give your full name to the inspector, please?
Yeah, Councillor Mike Bonfield, lived in Swanage all my life, born and bred, and I've been a town councillor now for nearly 14 years.
And in Swanage in particular, what role do you perform at the council and what does that in practice involve?
Interesting. Like I said, I've been a town councillor now for nearly 14 years, and I feel it's quite an honour to be selected or elected by the residents of Swanage to represent them in all walks of life. I served as the mayor of Swanage for 4 years, and the one thing I like doing is walking around the town, talking to people and listening to them. And I think if you ask in Swanage, quite a high percentage of people will talk to me about concerns. I receive very, very few emails. I'm not that not a well user of technology, shall we say. I'm just a normally secondary school educated lad that's worked in Swanage all my life and decided that I wanted to give something back, which is where I ended up where I am today.
Thank you. And I believe at the moment you're chairman of the Community Services Committee, is that correct?
I am, yeah, that's correct.
If you could look at page 19 of the large bundle number 4 that's in front of you.
Yep.
That's the proof of evidence of the consortium, and at page 21,
Yep.
you'll see section 2 of that proof to which you're speaking. And could you tell us about the geographical extent of Swanage Town Council?
I think anybody that knows Swanage knows we're really at the end of a 10-mile cul-de-sac. And if you ask any resident, what is the effect on the ferry, you've only got to look when it's not there. Swanage, Corfe, Studland, we can all be shut off completely, because I'll guarantee if the ferry is off, there's an accident on the 351. And if it's between Corfe and Wareham, the whole area is closed, because you get lorries, coaches, whatever, trying to go down Mount Arm, which is a track, or they try and go to the Church Knoll area, which is a track, and block it. So the ferry is very, very important. I think Swanage would cease to exist without tourism. We are a Victorian seaside resort. Tourism is our main income. And as stated just now, things like our steam heritage railway, our Victorian pier, the Dorset Castle, which is run by Dorset Council, are all reliant really on tourism. We've lost many hotels over the years. I think we're down to 3 main ones now. We've lost many bed and breakfasts, they used to be. I think the modern term is Airbnb. But accommodation is getting harder and harder because although the season's longer, for some reason, people don't stay. They travel.
And as chairman of the Community Services Committee, do you have access to information about infrastructure and services which might not be available to the average citizen of Swanage?
Easy answer is no.
Could I ask you to look in volume 2, which is the other open volume in front of you, and page 153.
Yes.
That's a page from the report of the 2021 Inquiry Inspector, and paragraph 528 is the effect on residents, which she summarised. It deals with a number of concerns raised by residents and local authorities in the area. Could you just have a quick read of that paragraph to yourself, please?
Yes.
Do those seem to be similar to your own concerns and those of Swanage residents at the moment in relation to this application?
Exactly the same. I can't see any real change.
That paragraph refers to lower income groups in the service and tourism sectors, as well as difficulties with staff recruitment and retention. From your knowledge, what can you tell us about how this application relates to those issues?
Getting staff, the difficulty in getting staff was severely increased due to the pandemic. We lost a lot of foreign staff that used to come to Swanage. They no longer come. Now, whether that's COVID or Brexit, no one, I think, will ever know. We have now restaurants in the town that close at 5 o'clock in the day because they cannot get staff to stay open in the evening because they'd have to bring them in. And Swanage season, although it's extended, I think it used to be around the 3 months, it's now probably nearing 4.5 to 5 months. The income and the profit is being pushed all the time by, should we say, external means, and we're all struggling to make money. So I think the industries, or sorry, the industries in Swanage is severely affected. And I remember about 3 years ago, I think it's since COVID, Swanage Hospital actually closed a ward because they couldn't get staff to man it. And that was, I believe, in August. I haven't got proof of that, but I'm pretty sure the NHS will get that.
And so what impact do you think the ferry tolls would have on those people who've spoken to you lately about the application?
Surprisingly, the majority have not been mentioning the increase in the single price ticket. the main concern is the drop in the discount towards the pre-purchase cards now. There's been major moans because a lot of those in further education or working on low wages in Bournemouth, one, have they got the disposable income to buy the pre-purchase tickets? You know, they're expensive. And I know there's families that have to buy these for their siblings or whatever so they can get the tickets. I think we all understand, you know, the ferry is a business. It has to deliver what it's got to do. But it seems that they're really pushing on residents and local people that rely on the ferry on a daily basis. And on the statement I submitted, you know, you're talking a minimum £300 increase if they use the ferry for, say, 8 crossings a week, 4 days a week, for, you know, 45, 46 weeks of the year, which is average if you're working. You know, at £300, some of them aren't earning that a week, and it's knocking them. And I think it's hitting the people that can least afford any increase, with everything else that's going on in the country and financially.
That paragraph's also talked about the possibility of increased use of the A351 to Swanage and related car costs. You've mentioned the nature of Swanage as a cul-de-sac. Have any of your residents discussed concerns about that alternative route?
I think you could probably speak to 90% plus of Swanage residents, or even Purbeck residents, because Swanage doesn't sit alone. You know, Purbeck is a unique area, and the people that have to go to Poole and Bournemouth dread using the 351. I am a taxi driver. I drive that road probably, on average, 3 times, 4 times a day. The traffic now, in the winter, is far worse than it's ever been. Only yesterday, I was coming back from Bournemouth at about 9:30, and it took me nearly 20 minutes from the Baker's Arms into Wareham. You know, about a 7-minute drive. So already there is the effect of this. I believe, and I think a lot of residents believe, that it's due to the price point of ferry prices having been reached already. And I think they are pushing people away from using the ferry because, yes, it may be 8, 9, 10 miles further down the road, but with the economy of cars and that now, and the cost of a car, if you've got one, it's quite a big saving going around the road.
The ferry companies put in some evidence about the relative costs of car journeys, and they would suggest that there's still a saving to be made if you go by ferry. What would you say about the maths of that?
I'd love them to prove it to me. It's, you know, there's about 15 taxis on that Swanage, and I would say they will only ever use it if the customer will pay for the ferry. And when you say to a customer, as stated by Councillor Bolter, from the Pig on the Beach to go over to Bournemouth, and you tell them they've got to pay 10, or really a minimum £6 it could be, on top of the fare, oh, we'll go around the road. And the problem with it is also you cannot guarantee your timescale. Around the road you can be pretty accurate, knowing the times of getting from Swanage to Poole, Swanage to Bournemouth, Swanage to Bournemouth Hospital, whatever. You know it's going to take you 50 minutes. You miss a ferry and you've made no saving going across the ferry if you sit there for 20 minutes waiting.
You spoke about Swanage Hospital closing a ward in August. Could you just let the inspector know which hospitals serve your area and where they are?
We have the great choice of Dorchester, Hull and Bournemouth. And during the summer, if we have to go around the road, and I'm talking emergency services as well, it can be chaos. And I can only presume, if even on blue lights, it is not always easy to get around the road. A comment that many locals go, thank God the ferry's here. For the ambulances, fire, you get heat fire or something, they all come over the ferry. And that's needed for that reason. It is it's locally important for the emergency services.
Thank you. I have no questions. Mr. Reynolds.
Just in relation to emergency services and independence in the ferry, are you aware, or you able to confirm, maybe you're not, that out of hours, if an emergency service needs access to the ferry during the night, middle of the night, they do have such access, they can radio the ferry office, which is manned, and it will be open especially for them?
Yes, I have heard of that.
Great. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Bonfield. Similar to Councillor Bolton, can I ask you about your council? Has there been any debate for
Yes,
the council?
there was a major debate September it was in my statement I given, I think it's September the 9th or 19th, and I don't remember any public that were there, and it was unanimous that we go with a consortium. Swanage has always fought for the residents. I think it was the last objection, we went with Dorset Council and Bournemouth Council, and this time it was great that we all went together as a consortium.
Thank you. If you could confirm that in writing for the inquiry, please, the date of that submission.
Yeah, I think it's
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions from me.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so, Chris Brady, would you like to come up and speak? Okay. Can you begin, please, by confirming the scope of your submission? Are you speaking on your own behalf or part of the group?
Of course. The statement I'm going to make has been framed as a result of consultations with the members of Swanage and Rural Purbeck Labour Party, and I'm speaking on their behalf today.
Please.
The revised explanatory memorandum accompanying the company's letter to the Secretary of State for Transport argues that without these increases, the company will make significant losses, and that as a result, there will be insufficient funds to make the necessary contribution to the ferry replacement reserve, so the ferry can be replaced at the ends of its useful life. The memorandum also says that without the rise in tolls, in every forecast year for the foreseeable future, there will be no return to investors. Swanage and Royal Purbeck Labour Party is of the view that these proposals do not reflect a sufficient degree of social responsibility on the part of the company, and are not clear either of the extent to which the company consulted with the community prior to putting forward its proposals. The ferry is a vital resource for the community, for workers, businesses, emergency services, public transport, visitors and residents. The proposals, in our view, give little consideration to the effect of increases on tolls on the users of the ferry who are low-waged and time-constrained, with no other option of getting to work. And the reduction in discounts on bulk tickets is especially significant here. And I know that's been raised by another attendee at this inquiry this morning. Dorset Council's local economic assessment indicates that weekly earnings of people living in Dorset are lower than the national average, £456 per week compared to £613. In 2019, South Dorset had the lowest social mobility of all English parliamentary constituencies, according to a House of Commons library paper. In 2017, local wages in Purbeck, the median wage was £26,000 per year. Too many jobs in South Dorset and Poole and Bournemouth are precarious and low paid. And I refer particularly here to key workers. Key workers in health and education have seen their wages fall significantly in real terms since 2010. And the proposed increases, particularly with reference to reductions in bulk discounts, would mean a greater proportion of household income of hard-pressed families, couples and individuals being spent on travel to places of work. And indeed, during the week, when the inquiry was held in the Springfield Hotel, we heard from a young woman who talked about the impact it would make upon her family budget, which was significant. And also today, Councillor Bonfield has made a reference to that very point. Local economy is at present heavily biased to a low-wage economy based on tourism, and it will suffer if workers can't afford to get to work. And again, we've had reference today to the concerns of local businesses, from the internationally renowned Pig on the Beach to smaller cafes and hotels. And if motorists, especially visitors, are deterred from using the ferry as a result of fare increases, congestion on already congested roads will be increased, with potentially serious consequences for emergency fire and health services. It's our view that little thought has been given to a wider picture with a social dimension by these proposals. No vision for off-peak fares, encouragement of pedestrians, cyclists and buses for user-friendly tariffs. We note that a freedom of information request reveals South West Ambulance Trust paid the company £21,599 from 2022 to 2024 to make use of the ferry. Perhaps this is something that also needs redress in any proposals put forward by the company. Public Health Dorset reports that the proportion of the population of Purbeck over 65 is at 28%, higher than the national average of 16%. This would seem to indicate the potential for a higher demand for emergency services by the elderly in our community than in Dorset as a whole. Startling to think perhaps of paramedics racing to hospitals in Poole, Bournemouth in dire medical emergencies, having to pay a toll to cross 250 yards of water. I'll end by saying it's significant that the company does not appear to have consulted with the community before it put forward its proposals. And we've heard a wealth of evidence of the concerns of the community today from both Scotland and Swanage councils. I would call upon the company, therefore, to reconsider its proposals and be guided not just by purely financial considerations, but also by its social responsibility to our community. And it's been pointed out today how essential it is as a means of communication. Otherwise, to many, its proposals will seem to be opportunistic and outside any sense of serving the local community or local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds, do you wish to? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brady. Can I just ask your statement? Could you provide a copy of that to the?
Yes, of course.
Officer,
We're very
please?
pleased to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, is there anyone else who wishes to speak today? Yes.
Sorry, I beg your pardon, I'm terribly hard of hearing. I'm awfully sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I was asking if anyone else wishes to speak today. So the lady there, you want to come forward to the table? If you could give your name, please, and explain who you are, please.
My name is Alice Rogers. I've lived in Swanage for 13 years. I'm a pensioner, but I also have a small business in Poole, which I've had for the last 13 years. I'm a frequent ferry user. I've just invested just over £70 in another 20 tickets. I appreciate the service that the ferry provides. I would particularly say I want to say something about goodwill. We all have goodwill, it's part of being a human being. And how far we extend that is of an individual, we also have families, we have people we love, etc. So there's that human part. There's actually, from a business perspective, I just want to point out that there's a monetary value to goodwill. Actually. And I think it's something maybe to take into account. What's been talked about a lot is this idea of partnership with the community, partnership with businesses. Somebody mentioned getting on board with businesses about helping groups of people travel, etc. It's all been said. Sorry if I'm repeating something that's been said. So that's what I would urge you towards, is that engagement with the community, with residents, with businesses, and that idea of goodwill across the board. I think that's all I want to say. And thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I think that brings us to a close of today, unless it's something further.
So just a little update in relation to the Mr. Slow point. Mr. Slow was emailed this morning with a paragraph of Mr. Keene's response brought to his attention, and also copies on that. And he has replied already, which we're very grateful, saying thank you for that. I shall be submitting my response. So he has the map and he has the position.
That's good, thank you for that. So I think just to record, it's now 10:30. It is an early finish, which is unfortunate given how much we've got to cover on Tuesday, but I do know that the programme officer has been trying hard to shift people from Tuesday to today. It just hasn't been possible. So I think that on that basis we will finish now. We will return at 9:30 on Tuesday morning. We have a full day of participants who wish to speak on that day, and then closing submissions will be made on Wednesday starting at 11 o'clock. So unless there's anything else anyone wishes to say, I'll adjourn the inquiry until 9:30 on Tuesday. Thank you very much for listening.
In relation to Mr. Slew's submission, should there be any legal aspect of it in particular, I would obviously be assisting in having that before I actually closing, so that I can wrap up any legal issues or respond to any legal issues. Has there been any direction issues in relation to Mr. Slew's issues? I appreciate he's only got this today. Is there any order of how that evidence should be, or the submission should be made to you?
No, there's nothing there. It's purely on the basis of what he said on Wednesday night,
yes.
And the meeting point up yesterday morning.
Yes.
He's come back.
Yes.
He wasn't here yesterday, but he listened to the
Yes.
watched the live stream, and he picked up the point there again. So clearly, I'd like to complete consideration of that issue by the close of the examination, but if there is a loose end, then I will deal with that at the end of the examination, and if necessary, give parties further time with the applicant having the final say.
And the end of the examination is, say, Tuesday, the end of the evidence, or the end of the inquiry?
Hopefully, it will be the end of Tuesday by the time Mr. Slow
Yes.
responds. But let's see what happens on
Yes,
Tuesday. Okay, so thank you very much.